Hi, my name is Ihab Saif, and this is the weekly knowledge sharing session. Our guest today is very special and well known in the field of internal auditing and risk management, Mr. Norman Marks. And hi, Norman, how are you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Norman, Auditing That Matters is a title of your books, which was published in 2016. Now, what do you mean by this concept, and what changed in the definition in 2020?
Good question. So nothing really changed in the definition except in the practice to some degree. What I'm talking about here is that in traditional auditing, we tend to audit the risks around a process or business unit or location. And a lot of times we come up with what we think is important, but it doesn't necessarily matter in terms of running the whole business. These are not issues that matter to or answer the questions of our leadership, whether it be the owner, the board, or the executives. They're looking at and working on other kind of issues. So auditing that matters is talking about providing assurance, advice, and insight on the kind of topics, the challenges, the issues, if you like, the risks that are consuming the time and attention of the leaders and the decision makers in the organization. How does that change in 2020? Well, everything is changing, right, in 2020. Although, frankly, it's been dynamic and turbulent, to use the term of the consulting firm McKinsey, for quite a while. Things have been changing. And frankly, where there's change, that's where you tend to find the most issues, challenges, and potential for getting things wrong, or if you like, risk. What we're looking at today should be telling us that the topics and the issues where we focused our time on in the past is really not quite as relevant, quite as useful, not as valuable to work on as it was in the past. So if we look at things today, you've got price of oil is maybe at $30 a barrel. I worked for an oil company for a good number of years, so about a decade. And there, the price of oil, I think at the end, it went up over 50, maybe 80. And they were talking about at some future point it going over 100. And that would then bring on additional supply of crude oil from shale and other. Now we're talking about, at one point, it was in single digits. So what does that mean? Well, it means you've got cash flow issues. You've got potentially receivable issues. You've got all kinds of issues in terms of running the organization. Now with COVID-19, you're looking at massive disruption. And so looking at that, you've got massive disruption. What are the executives and leaders on the board thinking about? They're thinking about, what is the world going to look like tomorrow, next week, the week after? I've just been working on another blog post, and in it, the survey is saying that business leaders are really focused on surviving, just surviving at the moment. But a number of them are starting to look at how they're going to have to change the strategic direction and practices of the organization going forward. So what they're working on, they're not worrying about accounts payable, except where the cash is coming from. And what should we be doing as internal auditors? Well, first of all, as Productivity has quite rightly said, and Richard and I talked about, we should be, in a sense, part of the response force, helping the executives figure out what to do, and figure out whether the organization is able to provide the systems, provide the information, provide the technology, the organization, and the people that we need to get through this. So, for example, little things. like internal audit can be talking to the extended parts of the enterprise. So for example, I think you said you're in Abu Dhabi and you've got offices in Dubai. Well, you may not be able to go to Dubai, and your leadership may not be able to go to Dubai. You can be on the phone with people there and asking them, how are you getting ready to bring people back? How are you going to protect them? And then you can give that information back to your board and executives and say, well, it looks like they're ready. And you're giving them assurance, advice, and insights that will actually help them make better decisions about how to come out of this as the restrictions are starting to lift. If they're starting to think about, we're going to have to not only change how people work, but how we communicate with customers and vendors. Well, you can be looking at, well, is the organization ready for that? Do we have the people and for example, I was talking to one organization just yesterday about some problems, and their help line, their help desk is understaffed. They should really be expecting to have more people calling in, asking for help. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I order? How do I get supplies? How do I, whatever it is. And yet they're actually understaffed in their help desk. Well, that's the kind of information that internal audit can be gathering and bringing back. And that's issues, and that's information, that's assurance, advice, and insight that matters and helps them make better decisions. So in the same way as the business is changing and what the business executives need to be looking at, internal audit needs to be asking, shouldn't we be looking at those things too? How can we help provide the assurance that these things will actually work the way in which they should? How can we, when people are concerned about cyber risk in a work from home workforce, what can we do to reduce that level of uncertainty? What can we do to make sure that, for example, people are properly trained in how to work from home and not expose the organization? So that's what I mean, and that's why I think it is changing. In the video that I did with Richard Chambers, he asked me, Norman, how would you be changing your audit plan for the second half of the year? And my response was, I don't think that far ahead, because where we are today is not where we're going to be next week,
Exactly.
or the week after that. And we need to figure out how we're going to run the internal audit department so that we can actually be fast. Okay, we can't take weeks to go and find information anymore when people are running business at speed.
Exactly.
We've got to be able to get out there, get the information, bring it back, and tell them what they need to know very, very fast.